Okay, a very good morning to everyone. I'm Dr. Wong Pacey. I'm the Senior Lecturer of School of Pharmacy at IMU. I'll be the moderator for today's live talk session. Very happy to have all of you here. The title of our talk today is How Pharmacists Can Start a Career in Research and Development. And we have arranged two different speakers for two different talks to give you some of their perspective and experience in research and development. Our first speaker is my colleague, Dr. Dinesh Kumar. He's the head of Life Sciences Department in School of Pharmacy. He's recognized as a very inspiring teacher, also successful researcher with publication in high impact journals. And in December last year, 2020, Dr. Dinesh has also been announced as the reputable Stanford University World Top 2% scientist. And of course, we are here all to look forward to listen from Dr. Dinesh about his insight on how pharmacists can start to embark a career in research development. Dr. Dinesh, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, I'll pass on to you. Thank you, Dr. Dinesh.
Okay, all right. So very good morning to all of you. So quite happy to see you all here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to just share something from my knowledge and something from my experience. Okay, so, but my primary focus for today's talk will be regarding research. And as a pharmacist, how can a pharmacist, do research or can shine in the field of research, right? So, just a very simple question for you. So, what comes to your mind when you think of a pharmacist? Probably some of you would have heard about pharmacists, or have at least met any of the pharmacists. What is that comes to your mind when you think of a pharmacist? I know there are many answers that come, but pharmacists are basically medication experts who prepare and dispense prescriptions to ensure medicines and doses are correct, prevent harmful drug interactions, counsel patients. So basically what they do is they explain the patients of the proper way of how to take a medicine, and they also explain how to prevent any harmful events, anything to do with the medication. So that's the primary role of pharmacists. Okay, now moving on, I would like to tell or share with you all, the different facets of, as a career in pharmacy. So if suppose one of you takes up a career in pharmacy, now these are the many different facets of different areas where you can go in as a person or as a personal, or in terms of a research career or in terms of a job career. There are many options actually. In fact, there are many options as you see here. You can go into marketing, you can go into as a hospital pharmacist or a clinical pharmacist. You can go into the research industry or pharmaceutical companies, drug administration. So there are many options actually. But my focus today will be in research and development, right? Now, research in the pharmacy field. Now, if you see that, probably when you take a medicine, probably you might not realize that, so that medicine which you take, say for example, even if you have headache, the most common medicine what we take is Panadol, right? So when you're taking Panadol, so that Panadol has overcome a huge process. So, if you see this picture on my left here, approximately from around 10,000 such kind of medicines, eventually only one becomes successful. Okay, so throughout this process, all the things, all the different process that happens, is taken care of by research. Okay, so that's how you get that one final medicine. So it is from among more than 10,000 other medicines, they compete and eventually they come as one medicine. Now, specifically, if you talk about research, now you see on the right hand side of my slide here, okay, you have starting with the drug discovery. Okay, so you have, now if you look at the pharmacy, now I am actually a lecturer in the International Medical University here. So we have few departments. Okay, so one of the departments is called as Pharmaceutical Chemistry. So they take care of the designing of the drug. And then we have another department by the name Pharmaceutical Technology. So what they do is that once the drug is designed by the chemistry department, the pharm tech department or technology department, they take up that particular molecule and they formulate it, meaning they make it into a form of medication. Then we have the Department of Life Sciences who do the testing on that particular formulation. So if we get a tablet, or say if we get any other formulation, it could be a syrup or tablet or an extract. So the life sciences, actually I'm from the department, right, life sciences. Okay, so we do research on it. We do research on that particular medication, and then we check whether the medicine is safe for consumption. We check everything is okay, and whether the medication is effective. And once that crosses our department, then it goes to the Department of Pharmacy Practice, where they have all these clinical components, where it comes, they deal directly with the patients, safety of the patients, or the counseling the patients. So it's all a huge one big cycle, preclinical and clinical, complete the cycle. All right, so that's all about how you get a medicine, or how the research happens in the pharmacy field. Right? This is just the whole concept in a nutshell. Now, if you look at the Ministry of Health Malaysia's research priorities, especially with regard to pharmacy, you see there are 5 research priorities according to the Ministry of Health Malaysia. Now, these 5 research priorities are specific to the field of pharmacy. So these are access to medicines, access meaning everyone should get proper access to medicine, so you can do research on that. So that's one of the research priority. Another one is monitoring and evaluation of outcomes. If a medicine says that, okay, it is actually good for this particular disease, so we see that whether really that medicine is really good for that particular disease. So we evaluate on the outcomes of that medicine. Then quality and safe use. So what you see here, these are the 5 research priorities of the Ministry of Health. Now, this is the latest priority. So now we know these are the hot topics now where research is going on. Okay, so at the last you see that big data analytics. That's one of the fields which is now actually generating a lot of attention. Big data analytics. So we have data. So how to use the data? You see things like Facebook or WhatsApp, but they use a lot of data. They know, okay, this customer needs this particular thing. Then they give advertisements based on that. So that's why on your Facebook, when you check on something, you get advertisements relating to that. So similarly here, how to use the current data and use analytics into the data, and for the benefit of the patient. So these are the 5 research priorities what currently the Ministry of Health Malaysia has proposed. So these are the areas where the ministry is actually encouraging people to work on. Now, having said that, so if you look at the overall picture of research and how pharmacy is involved here, you see that. So you can see that the 2 biggest circles here are area of non-infectious research and area of infectious research. So probably you must be knowing what is non-infectious and what is infectious. An example for non-infectious will be diabetes. Okay, it's a non-infectious disease. So that is research on such kind of disease. And infectious, coming to that, is anything to do with virus, bacteria. Now we have COVID, is an infectious disease. So you have these 2 are the biggest chunk of research where pharmacists can be involved. Apart from that, specifically pharmacy research, for example, clinical pharmacy research, or hospital pharmacy, that's purely specific to pharmacy. And then you have environmental research, clinical research, or even preclinical research. Before going into clinical studies or clinical trials, we as pharmacists ensure that that product or the medicine goes through preclinical research, where we test it on bacteria or cell lines, or we then test it on animals. Then everything is safe, only then it goes to the clinical part or testing on the humans. So if you see that, one thing good about the research in pharmacy is that it's actually interlinked. The area of pharmacy research is interlinked with almost all the areas. It's interlinked. So suppose I take a topic to do a research on one of these infectious, non-infectious, actually everything is interlinked. So there are ample scope for choosing a topic, and it's not very narrowed down to one specific item. So you have a very broader areas when it comes to research in pharmacy, because pharmacy is such a profession that it is actually interlinked with many other allied professions. So in that way, it's beneficial. As a pharmacy researcher, it becomes more easier to develop your pharmacy skills, because you have a wide range of options to choose from. Now, I just want to give you a simple idea about my journey with my students. So I'm basically a lecturer. So I have been lecturing from ever since I completed my master's. Okay, so if you see at this particular journey of my journey, so ever since I completed my master's, so I had been interacting and I have been in touch with my students. So primarily I dedicate my success to partly also to the students who I interact with, who I have worked with, right? So I completed my B Pharm. So you see that the duration of this particular slide is 20 years from the time I completed my B Pharm in 2000 until today, 2021. It's a 20 years of, in 20 years, you can see how much has changed, how much I have changed, and a huge credit goes to students. And along with me, the students have also grown. And many of my students currently, they are in very, very high positions. Some of my students are doing PhD in Australia. Some of the students who have guided, they are in the US working for a research or a pharmaceutical company. So research in pharmacy, that actually will be very fruitful. Okay, but then again, you need to go through that particular process. So in my case, yes, my first research paper was when I completed my B Pharm. So when I completed my B Pharm, I got my first paper. So over the period, you can see the number of papers at the bottom of the slide. You can see that over the period, over the duration, my numbers, or the numbers have gone up. And today I can boldly tell that I have more than 100 papers to my name. And a huge credit goes to students, because all the students who work with me also get the same credit. It's not only me. So students also get the same credit of having those papers and whatever the accolades which comes by. So students are also benefited. So in that way, I feel that the career in research in pharmacy field is very, very, very rewarding, highly rewarding. So this is a bit of my collaborations currently. These are my international collaborators. So most of the universities are listed down here, whom I collaborate currently. It's, in Australia, we have University of Technology Sydney, Queensland Institute of Technology, Tasmania, the Newcastle. So how do I collaborate? Partly because we have a program called as student mobility. So BPharm students who come into the program, they have this opportunity to go and work into one of these collaborators laboratory. It's a very huge advantage for the students, because they get to see the high-tech equipments on both sides. So they also see the equipments in our side, in IMU, as well as they also get to see the laboratory and the principles of how research is carried out in those partner universities. So roughly in the BPharm program, we have this particular semester where the students are, encouraged to do research, and most of the times they get the opportunity to work in this particular laboratories for a period of anywhere between a month to 60 days, depending on the need. So basically, all these together help both the students as well as a supervisor like me. So that's about it. And then currently, these are the hot areas where research is been going on. So you know that epidemiological research on big data analytics, accessibility to medicine, patient safety, vaccine research. Now we talk about the vaccines for COVID. So we are expecting the vaccines of COVID to come anytime soon. So many countries have already started, administering the vaccines. So vaccine research will be a very huge thing for future. Okay, so apart from that, epidemiological and all the other research areas I have listed down here, these will be the future for research post-COVID. A bit of what happens in IMU. So this is what happens. This is how we prepare a student for research. Okay, so starting from semester 1, the students are groomed in such a way that they are already they are quite aware that, okay, what happens to that particular career after 4 years of time in BPharm. So the students learn the basic concepts starting from semester 1. Then through semester 2 and 5, they're exposed to a variety of areas. They get to analyze and decide upon through the semesters 2 to 5. In semester 6, they actually involved in research by writing a research proposal. Then the actual research they carry out in semester 7. So, you see that from semester 1 until 7, by the time the student comes out as a graduate, the student is very different. Is no more the same student who joined in semester 1. So by the time when the student completes semester 8 or the entire BPharm program, the student is very different, very competent, very skillful in many areas. So that's what we do at IMU. So we prepare the students. We actually we make them competent. We make the students competent and market ready. That's what we do in IMU. So I think I have given a nutshell of whatever I have known in research in pharmacy, and also I have explained to you how research in IMU in the BPharm program takes place. So with that, I conclude my talk. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you so much for coming, for making time to attend this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dinesh. I'm sure that's very inspiring for some of them who are interested in research and knowing how research are actually taught within the program. Our second top speaker is Miss Ling Wei, all right, and I call her Ling Wei. Okay, Ling Wei is our BPharm graduate, BPharm alumni. She graduated from our own Bachelor of Pharmacy program, and later she did a master and also at the moment doing a PhD in IMU as well. So she will be also sharing a little bit about her perspective on her journey and also a career in the research and development. So Ling Wei, are you ready?
Yep.
Yeah,
right.
Okay, I'll pass on to you. Thank you, Ling Wei.
Okay, thank you, Pacey. Now I would like to share my screen.
Yes, we can see it full screen. All right.
Okay, good. Right. So hi everyone, I'm Ling Wei. So today it's actually my pleasure to be here today sharing my experience as a pharmacist as well as a researcher. So to be honest, being a researcher was not expected when I first joined pharmacy course. It was once planned that I wanted to become a community pharmacist, serving the public after I graduated and obtained my fully registered pharmacist license. So in fact, this is what I actually have been went through until now after I graduated. First, I completed my provisional training, which is we call it PRP, and obtained my fully registered pharmacist license at Tawa Hospital Sabah. So after that, I opt to continue working as a hospital pharmacist there. And 2 years after, I decided to quit and join Master by Research. So while I was doing my master, I was working as a community pharmacist at the same time. After I graduated with my master, I joined IMU as a lecturer and currently doing my PhD by research. So I think often some may ask me what actually made me as a pharmacist to go further into research. This actually mainly from the interest cited during my undergraduate, especially during final year project, whereby I was allowed to explore and expose to the process of research thoroughly. So subsequently, when more and more research kicked in after I graduated, for example, I would need to conduct a diabetes research during my PRP training and different type of hospital research during my working life as a hospital pharmacist. I realized there are actually so many gaps to be addressed in our healthcare system and more to be learned to enhance my competency as a researcher. So at that particular junction, coincidentally, I received a call from my pharmacy lecturer offering an opportunity for master by research. And thus I made up my mind to go further into master by research. So during my master, I was actively involved in drug discovery and development research. And currently my research focus is more on cancer biology. So what do I do as a researcher? Briefly, to do a research, one will need to develop actionable research questions, design suitable approach to answer the questions. Then you execute the experiment and adjust to the real world situation accordingly, collect and analyze the data. Then you will need to interpret and synthesize insight from the data collected. And last but not least, you will need to learn to explain and disseminate the research impact. So all this process actually involves ability in imagination and creativity. At the same time, you need to be logical and you need to be reasoning in the process and involved in computational thinking, scientific experimentation, data collection and analysis. And all this process involve continuous reflection and feedback. But of course, I think as a researcher, we do often facing challenges such as technical, financial, and analytical challenges before we get to untangle the research question and problem. And also, it is not uncommon that our finding may end up somewhere against what we hypothesize. So regardless, these challenges actually help building out our resilience and continue motivating me as a lifelong learner to make me a better researcher. All right. I think I would like to emphasize is that the skill you learn during research is not only just applicable when you are working as a researcher. In fact, the process of research actually helps to instill critical thinking, problem solving, analytical and management skill. So all these actually key attributes in demand for your career success everywhere. And last but not least, what I would like to share is the perspective as a pharmacist and a researcher at the same time. Being a pharmacist and a researcher at the same time actually allows me to look at things with multi-dimensional perspective when I come to practice and to science. So simple example is that when a treatment fails in a patient, many questions can be ranging from practice to the science behind will pop out in the mind due to the foundation laid during pharmacy course. So for example, you will start to ask, hey, is this medication not working because of patient poor compliance or adherence? Or is this because the medication is really not effective enough to treat the patient, or it will creating some unwanted effect to actually confound the treatment outcome? Or back to the delivery or formulation part is, you will start thinking, is it possible for us to do some improvement on the formulation or delivery? Or perhaps to the drug response part, we can start to think about, is there any individual differences in the drug responses? For example, drug absorption, metabolism, or even genetical differences that contribute to this kind of treatment failure. And also back to the discovery part, we will start to think, is it possible for us to discover or develop a better drug to become a better treatment option? So collectively, all this can be different research questions that will continuously make you a very thoughtful pharmacist and a researcher who strive for ways to bridge the gap between the problems and the solution in healthcare system. So indeed, I would like to emphasize research is actually not just for academics alone, but it is actually a very important competency for you to impact all sectors of the pharmacy profession nowadays for the betterment in healthcare delivery. So, all right, this is the end of my talk. I hope you find this session is helpful for you. Now, I would like to pass the floor back to Dr. Pacey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ling Wei. Indeed, I think it's very interesting that you raise about the gaps that sometimes we can, as pharmacists, that we can see from the perspective of practice as well as research. Yeah, we have actually a lot of questions, so I'm going to go through some of it. Okay, I think perhaps one of the questions that's very related to some part of how both of you has actually gone through in your journey is that how can a pharmacy student develop interest in the field of research? Is there anything that they can do to learn? What are your perspective on this? Yeah.
Okay, so I think I can answer that. So basically, if I turn back and look at my life, how I developed interest, actually it's the inspiration which comes from within. When you see people dying of some disease, or when you see people having a certain disease, somehow there will be a spark inside you, within you, telling that, okay, so far the medicines what we have can't do anything much. What can we do about this? It might be that sometimes, the person in your own life, it could be your close one, suffering from a disease. Probably it could be cancer or something, which don't have a proper cure. So something will spark within you telling that we should do something about this. We have to do something about this. Then you will try to think of ways, how can I be an instrument, to kind of facilitate or bridge the gap between this older generation medicines which are not effective, or to find out a newer one through any technique. So we have a lot of techniques. So that's how I generated this interest within me. So it actually started as a spark. Then when you have to go through these studies and everything, it will develop within you. So you try to figure out ways how to enhance your capabilities in research. And it's all basically from there. So that's how you develop the research mentality within you. It all develops with the spark within you. Probably when you see something, or it could be a bad experience, or it could be a very demotivating experience, or that's where you get that a spark within you. That's where you get that the idea of research, how to go ahead. For me, it was like that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lucy.
Yeah. Ling Wei, you mentioned a little bit about it as well, isn't it? That you started with not really thinking about being in research, but ended up doing research.
Yeah, I think for me it's because my undergrad program actually allows me to very focus exploring the research process. So from here, I actually started to find my interest in doing research. And one thing maybe I would like to add is that the mentoring system, the research mentor available in my pharmacy course, I actually helped a lot to strengthen out my strength as a researcher. So that one actually pushed me further to really focus to become a researcher. So the support there is actually one of the contributing factor for me to pursue.
Yeah. Certainly, as what Dr. Dinesh and also Ling Wei has shared, is that in our BPharm program, we have different semesters, areas or component of teaching learning that actually help students to develop research. The students may not see as a research skills at the end of the day, but every part of what you learn from analytic, experimental skills, practical skill, numeric skills, everything come to the end when in semester 7 you have one dedicated semesters where you look into projects. So you have one semesters where you fully concentrate in projects, So I suppose for different people, how they create the interest in research is very, very different. Like what Dr. Dinesh has the interest because he has a lot of dilemma or concern about things, and he felt like he wanted to search for answers. But in fact, I think it's quite the same for me in that sense. I started my career a little bit and with the thinking that I might end up with community pharmacists, just like Ling Wei as well. So I thought I'm going to work as a community pharmacy because my neighbor is a community pharmacy, and that was the reason why I go into pharmacy course in the first place. But as soon as I came out from degree, I went into a community, not community really, I went into hospital to work for a little while, and I realized I think I like hospital, being a hospital pharmacist a bit more. But I had opportunity to do my master. But after I came back from masters, I totally changed my mind. I went into academic. I did a bit of part-time in retail pharmacy. I start to sense the differences between the practice. And I have to say that my journey in career in research is a bit different, because in the early part of my years, I was very focused in research in practice area. Yeah, but when I'm becoming a teacher, for many years, I start to generate interest in research in education, in pharmacy education, like how to make students more comfortable in learning, they will enjoy the learning more and things like that. So I think this type of interest probably evolved with time, which I believe so, so that's how I experience my interest and my involvement in feeling about research. But I fully agree that I think a lot of time is because we have one questions in mind that we want to answer, and it keep bothers us. And we like to know, whether how to address and how to deal with that answers. And that probably is a lot of reason why a lot of people then enter into the research. The other questions that the audience has asked is that what are the career prospects for pharmacy apart from R&D, apart from research and development?
So there are many career options. I think I have showed in one of my slides, in terms of career options, there are plenty of options. Say if you are asking about apart from research, yes, you can go into academics, which is one of the main areas for career-wise. If not academics, you can go into pharmaceutical industry. Pharmaceutical industry has again a very, very huge ocean by itself. Because when you say pharmaceutical industry, there are many disciplines within the pharmaceutical industry. And now in Malaysia, if you see, pharmaceutical industry is picking up, unlike before. So now we have a lot of industries which are booming up in Malaysia, and these industries will need people like you. They need, as it could be a production formulation scientist, or it could be a research and development analyst, or a chemist, or as designing the drugs. So each industry will need a huge can go into regulatory affairs, say patenting, or in any of the government organizations, or the public organizations. They need people like you to properly handle the regulatory affairs. So for all these areas, pharmacists are very much essential. So in terms of scope, it's quite broad. It's not like specifically to narrow down to one specific area, but it has a very huge, and I also forgot to mention about hospital pharmacy, clinical pharmacy, community pharmacy, working in the retail pharmacy, and all these are highly rewarding. So there are, in terms of career options, I think being a pharmacist, is actually a very big fortunate thing, so that, there are plenty of options to choose from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as Dr. Dinesh has said, I just want to add on a little bit on that, there's so many different careers for a pharmacist, from the journey of, development of drugs down to, formulating what he's saying. Now you have like Panadol effervescent, Panadol, soluble, Panadol sachet, Panadol normal tablet. All these are different types of formulas, and it require a lot of investment in time, in researching, production, getting it into the market for people to use. So if you imagine how a drug being from the point that it's being developed down to the point that it's being utilized, you will realize that it's not just about one pharmacist. It's a lot of contribution of different people inside the whole business. So if we are talking about a drug, in terms of pharmacists, they are expert on drugs. So they can be involved in all process of development, research, utilization in any parts of this. That's why there is a huge market and a huge demand as well for them. On the other perspective, I think one thing that we cannot avoid and we cannot forget is that we have increasingly aging population. Our population, we know, are staying, are living a bit longer, and we have more and more aging population because we are managing and able to deal with a lot more diseases than we used to be. Yeah, because of this increasing population trend, you will realize that there are more and more people actually taking drugs. So averagely, I think most of the elderly are taking 6-7 drugs, So if you imagine the healthcare system require more support, because as due time guy, you need a lot more healthcare supports to be able to take care of all these older elderly people. And hence the reason why you also see that there are more and more healthcare hospitals, like private healthcare, that's being developed over time as well. Yeah, so when you have more and more centers and institutions relating to healthcare building up, you will not be able to live or somehow work without different healthcare professionals, include pharmacists. Yeah, so pharmacists could have different, not just different prospectus or different pathway that you can go to, but there's also a demand of ongoing basis. Yeah. So Ling, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's all about the synergy between the healthcare system, right? Because we, as you mentioned, the aging population, like pharmacists actually, as people who dispense the medication, they are the one actually ensuring this aging population can actually take the drug properly for better compliance and adherence. And in fact, pharmacists are the one taking initiative to develop all the innovative technology or delivery system to help them to take the medication more in a better way. For example, they pack the drug into like the daily basis, things like that. So all this actually involve a lot of innovative technology which require pharmacist input. So this will be a long way for us to look into. Yeah.
Yes, in fact, indeed it is. Yeah. One of the audience asked, are there much research opportunities in Malaysia?
Yes, as there are plenty of opportunities. If not before, now we have plenty of opportunities. I think Ling also can, support that claim, because you see that if you look into career in pharmacy research, there are mainly two divisions. One is, if you have to do a research in academic field, that is one way. Another way is you do research in industry. These are the two main branches of pharmaceutical research. And when you talk about industry, it also involves clinical research. We have a lot of CROs, meaning clinical research organizations. So there what they do is that they do clinical research. For example, you talk about clinical trials. So we have dedicated companies or institutions which specifically do this clinical trials for you. So in terms of scope, yes, there's plenty of opportunities in terms of research. But what I see today is that students are more interested to go into job first. So that's why you don't see anything outside. But actually, the opportunity-wise, there are plenty. But I just want to also highlight this here. So over the next few decades, or over the next few, even next 5 years, when you look down the lane, next 5 years, the interest towards students jumping into job first will change eventually. It's already changing. It's already changing. So previously we had all the 100% of students would like to go into the job first, but now we see a lot of students, they are thinking differently. They want to go into masters first. They want to do research. Obviously, when you enter masters, you have to do research. Okay, then some of them want to do PhD because they're thinking now out of the box. Unlike previously, where students used to think, okay, I need to just clear off my PTPTA, and I just want to do this. I just want to get back the money which I put in there. So now people are thinking differently. Now we have people who think, okay, I need to complete my PhD first, because completing PhD will give me more rewarding career than entering as a entry-level B.Pharm graduate. So things are changing. So in terms of options wise, you have a lot of options in research, because research is everything. Everything, like what Dr. Pacey mentioned, for a drug to come into market, it has to go through research, and we don't have enough people. Let me put it very clearly. Malaysia don't have enough people, enough researchers. So for research, you have plenty of options, plenty of openings. Okay, so yeah, that's it.
Yeah, maybe I can add on is that when I first joined back as a researcher, like when my pharmacy lecturer called me to ask me whether I'm interested to further explore into research, one thing he mentioned is that he needs someone like a pharmacist who actually involve practice to the science. So the overlapping actually help them to see things differently. So that will actually something lacking in the basic science development nowadays. For example, the scientists, they will really just look at the basic science, look at the science biology part, but they don't have people involved in practice to help them to look after the practice, to get the practice and the science, the gaps between wasn't addressed. So the thing he mentioned to me that he wished to invite me to back to the research field is he wished to have someone that could actually address the gap in between. So that will be one advantage for a pharmacist to join research, because we practice, and at the same time, because we know the science behind due to the pharmacy course. So that will be a unique perspective when you come to research.
Yeah, fully
Also,
agree.
I would like to highlight one more thing is that, the government of Malaysia is very supportive for research. You see that there are plenty of funding which is given off by the Malaysian government, especially the Ministry of Health, especially, or the science department. So there are plenty of funds available. I personally know some of my colleagues who have funding, but no students. We don't have students, we have my colleagues, they sent out advertisements over advertisements, asking if there's any student who would like to join my research team. So opportunity wise, that's plenty of opportunities, just that you need to go and find for it. Thanks.
Yes, yeah. Maybe I just want to add on as well that perhaps I think for some students may feel like sometimes researcher is like a job, but my feeling is that researcher sometimes may not be exactly just a job. You're not employed exactly as like a researcher, A lot of time, I think being a researcher is like a journey, and I have to agree that many people start this journey by having a master and PhD, because that's when you start embarking into knowing research. Yeah, so truthfully is that if you decided that to further work into the research field within the pharmacy area, the first thing to do is that you need to embark on a B.Pharm curriculum. You need a B.Pharm degree that at least put you through to understand what are the drugs, what are the things going on, and if you And many of them, some of them at the end of this career or after going through the Bachelor of Pharmacy, they may have different ideas of what types of research interests they have, because like we said, there is a huge diversification relating to drugs that you can embark on, you know, from actually, I have known people who have actually gone from pharmacy degree and then later do a master and PhD, even relating to biotechnology. So they are people of that kind, because it's not like not closely related, but they are closely, they are closely related to some degree. So there are some certain component that they might be embarking on it. But the pharmacy curriculum or degree itself give you some foundation and understanding about research, about drugs, about pharmacy. And after that, when you do your masters and PhDs, then you automatically will know more about research skills and all that. And from there, then you could move on into working in academic, where you may become an educator stroke researcher, like what Dr. Dinesh is doing. But there are a group of people who actually post PhDs, they have joined companies as well. You know, so these are companies that employ people with research skills and research qualifications to do different positions within the company, either as researcher or some of them like clinical research, that what Dr. Dinesh is saying. Yeah. So and of course, some of the students are very interested, you know, audience here are very interested in the pay that the researcher can get at the end. You know, I think I'll answer to that first. I think it depends on where you are employed in, you know, in the first place. You know, what position are you in terms of the research? So the research pay can be very, very different. But having said so, as a pharmacist, if you first get a degree and you come out and you are working as an intern pharmacist, which means a PRP, which is a provisional pharmacist without a license, the usual starting pay is at least about 2,000. So again, it also varied between companies or where you go for. So it can be 1,008 to about 2,000 plus, depending also whether you have other incentive and things like that. Because a graduate of pharmacy now can actually work under private or even work under Ministry of Health. So there are options that you can go into working under Ministry of Health hospitals, or you can go into private, example, pharmaceutical company, all right, or you can go into private, like private medical centers, or you can even go to community pharmacy, like example, Guardian Pharmacy, Caring Pharmacy, as long as they are recognized as the institution of provisional registered pharmacist institution. And the list of these, what we call PRP, whoever eligible to take in are actually under the website of Pharmacy Board itself. So the Pharmacy Board website actually has a full list of where are the places that a graduate can actually work in. So they can actually go to any of these places. Yeah. Perhaps also to add on, I'm so sorry to add on to that as well. Our IMU, under our School of Pharmacy, we are actually one of the PRP training centers as well. Yeah, we train PRP for R&D, which is research and development. So which means that a graduate who are interested at the end of the day to embark on a PRP within the area of research and development, we do have opportunity offer where they can do their masters together with the PRP itself. Do you have anything to add on, Dr. Dinesh and Ling Wei?
Yeah, I think,
income-wise, I think when I first start my research for my master, I do have stable income from the research project as well, because the research, they actually cover the stipend if you join as a master. So that one will be one of the source of your income while you are pursuing your master. And at the same time, I also practice as a community pharmacist. So income-wise, it was covered during my time. So it wasn't a very much worried point for me. Yeah, that's my experience. Yeah.
And one more thing is that as an employee, for once you completed your pharmacy, join a company. When you join a company or something, you know, especially the pharmaceutical companies, the starting pay might be slightly lower, but if you realize that as you progress through the years, their increments are huge. So like what Dr. Pacey said, I mean, it's different. It's different based on the setup where you actually take up a job. So like for example, the pharmaceutical company, that the companies, I know people who earn more than me now because their progression is totally different. Their scale is different actually. So as each year pass by, the increments what they get is very huge. So initially it might be small, but then as over a period of time, it's very rewarding to work in. If it's a very good company, yes, it's a bonus actually. If it's a medium range company, yes, it's good. So initially, maybe most of the jobs will give slightly lower salaries, but then as you progress, you will get very good rewarding salaries.
And because I think nowadays the industry, they also see research as a very important competency skill. So they are willing to invest to sponsor you when you work as a, maybe as a pharmacist in the industry. Then when you tell them your interest to become a researcher, they will actually very happy to sponsor to a certain extent to support you to further study.
Yes, that's very true. In fact, I have one master student who actually sponsored by company to do a master in pharmacy practice. Yeah, so she has a keen interest in a area where the company are actually seeing as a opportunity for their staff development. So the company were willing to give her time and also sponsorship on some of the tuition fees to come in to get her degree. And on return, of course, she will have to, she probably are managing certain projects that's relevant to them as well. Yeah, I think the bottom line in real working world is that if you are very good in what you're doing, they are willing to pay you a lot. And that's very true in most of the business or in any types of working world nowadays. So I suppose, I think if we're looking at pay and all that, we have to recognize that every types of profession are competition. They are competition. Yeah. So we can only strive to be better in what we are doing. Then the money it should come, in that sense. Yeah. All right. There are actually a few similar questions that's relating to about differences between pharmacy and pharmaceutical chemistry. Yeah, maybe Dr. Dinesh can offer a bit of a description about, since you also talk about pharmaceutical chemistry just now. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, first of all, the main difference is that pharmacy is a professional program. I guess what's the meaning of a professional program, meaning that you can work on yourself. Okay, it's such a professional program. As a pharmacist, you can work. Whereas pharmaceutical chemistry is not a professional program. It's a science program. It's a science stream program where they mainly focus on chemistry. Okay, so that's the first and foremost difference between pharmacy and pharmaceutical chemistry. And as the word says, pharmaceutical chemistry, students in pharmaceutical chemistry, they purely focus on chemistry with an angle of pharmacy there. Okay, so students there involved in more of research in chemistry, finding out new molecules, designing new molecules, structure-wise, they modify some of the existing drugs and medicines. So they purely work with chemistry in their brain. So if you have a brain for chemistry, yes, that would be an ideal option to pick up pharmaceutical chemistry. All right. Another difference is that the pharmacy program in IMU is 4 years, whereas the pharmaceutical chemistry is less than 3 years. So, there's a difference in duration as well. Fees-wise also there's a difference. Okay. And job opportunity-wise also is different. Now, pharmacy has a huge, wide range of options in terms of job opportunities or career. Pharmaceutical chemistry is slightly narrowed, not to say that bad, but actually pharmaceutical chemists, they work primarily in companies. They primarily work in research companies and pharmaceutical drug companies. And what they do is that they help in develop new molecules in terms of designing the drug, in terms of helping the other people. It could be a pharmacist, so they may be helping the other formulation chemists or the formulation researchers to design a drug or modify a drug. For example, I can tell you one example. We have a Panadol. Now, Panadol can be modified. So they need the help of a chemist. There comes the role of the pharmaceutical chemistry graduates. So similar to pharmacy, the pharmaceutical chemistry also have its own benefits. So if a student is very much interested or say have a brain for chemistry, then yes, that would be their cup of tea. It would be good for them to take pharmaceutical chemistry.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add on, Ling Wei, on that?
I think it actually depending on your personality as well, because like for me, when I first started, I prefer to have like practice experience. That's why I opt to become a pharmacist, but not a pharmaceutical chemist. So that actually come into consideration when you want to choose for the courses as well. Yeah, like at first I say I want to become a community pharmacist because I really enjoying like interact with patients, talk to them and see what are their problems, then try to solve their problem, things like that. But if you are really enjoying like just to look at chemistry part, then maybe pharmaceutical chemistry will be more suitable in that sense.
And
Yeah.
and
Yes,
one sorry,
please. Yeah.
and one
Yeah.
more thing is that as a pharmaceutical chemistry graduate, you probably might not be ending up like pharmacists do, with talking and interacting with patients. Probably your job will be probably sitting in an office with account and or say in industry setup. Probably your job scope will be like that. So because I know some students when they come, they ask, they're not quite okay to interact with patients. They say, I want something where I can be on myself. So and pharmaceutical chemistry, that's what they end up with, because their job profile or their job scope is like that. So most of the times they're confined to within a company or within office atmosphere, whereas pharmacy, they primarily interact with patients, especially as a pharmacist. They do a lot of talking. So that's also another major difference between pharmaceutical chemistry and pharmacy.
Yes, yeah. There are certainly uniqueness between this pharmaceutical chemistry as well as pharmacy. So I think in summary, I think it's really depending on what students or what you are interested in. If you are more interested in a profession where at the end of the day you get a license, bearing in mind the license actually qualified you to be able to open a pharmacy, work in an environment where you serve patients legally, because the license is a sort of a legal tag to you to say that you are the pharmacist in that sense. But of course, the pharmaceutical chemistry would work in one part of the area, which is a lot more relating to the chemistry, development of medicine, or any areas that could be requiring the knowledge itself. So there is a slight differences between them in that sense. Yeah. How about the research? There are of course questions relating to what would be the main differences between the research between pharmaceutical chemistry and the pharmacy. So I think what Dr. Dinesh has also talked about as well, is that pharmaceutical chemistry research are more related to the drug and development at the early stages of drugs. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So the pharmacy research can be actually extended from development down to utilization, or even marketing of research or drugs and things like that. So there is a wide perspective that you can work on from along all the development or discovery down to development in using and all that in the pharmacy. So pharmacy chemistry is slightly more unique in that sense because it's a very focused area in that area. So it's really, up to the students themselves or the person themselves, which area are you more interested? And I normally will tell the students, if you are thinking about being a pharmacist, I think for the first few years of your career, you have to be prepared to be wanting to serve customers, talk to people, because very likely if you're not going into company, a lot of your job would require that. So if you like to interact with more people, patient, in that sense, I think then pharmacy would be probably more suitable for you, but if you are more liking to be sit behind the bench, doing some work by yourself and all that, perhaps then pharmacy chemistry might probably be more of something that you like to go for. But again, people can change, evolve, because interest can evolve. So you need to really seriously think about, in the down maybe 5 years, 10 years, what are you looking for? Yeah. Do you have anything to add on, Dr. Dinesh or Ling Wei, on that?
Yeah, I think you have covered most of the points. One more thing is that, pharmaceutical chemistry as well have its own different branches. I just remember that now, so that, you have branches like combinatorial chemistry, synthetic chemistry, inorganic, organic, physical. So when we say pharmaceutical chemistry as well, it also has its different disciplines within the pharmaceutical chemistry. So as a researcher, you also have more of options to enter through any of this based on your interest. So again, it all boils down to your own interest, because some students I know that they are very much interested in plants and isolating, some components from the existing plants, because our knowledge comes from sometimes our grandparents or sometimes the parents, because probably they might be using a certain plant, for healing, something like that, so they use the juice of a leaf or say just like that. So probably even Chinese medicine, you see, most of the Chinese medicines are, they are natural products. So probably you might have experienced your grandparents using, and then, from there, the students basically develop interest to find out what exactly is there in that particular plant or the plant product. There comes the interest of, chemistry as well. So students get into the interest of, isolating the actual active constituent from that particular plant product. And then once the isolated, characterize it, and then, take the help of other disciplines like pharmacologists or toxicologists, eventually a clinician, eventually until it comes out as a proper medicine. So scope wise, yes, pharmaceutical chemistry also have much scope in terms of research as well.
Yes, certainly. Yeah. So they are also an audience who are very interested about compounding pharmacy and military pharmacists, Yeah. So these are all very sort of not say new area in that sense, but very unique area that some pharmacists are very keen in. Perhaps I will just highlight a little bit military pharmacists. The military pharmacists basically are pharmacists who work with the Malaysia armed forces. So basically they are the pharmacists that basically are based in the Malaysia armed forces or whatever base they have, and they work with the doctors or other healthcare professional in there to actually offer services to the military or the our police force and things like that. So I think whether the job is challenging or not, I think it depends. The military pharmacist that I knew, I mean, he was very excited with his job. He liked his job very much. And I can see it's a very honorable job for him. I mean, to us, it's a very honorable that he, he has spent his time a lot onto taking care of the people who can be sick and all that with the military camp. And some of it can be quite a struggle because they could be based in different places, So I think in some, I think it depends on your person, whether you like this type of job or not. So if you like that, definitely it's probably quite enjoyable and challenging at the same time, definitely, yeah. Do you all want to talk, have any input on compounding pharmacies?
I think compounding pharmacies also involve a lot of research as well, because we do have some collaboration with some of the compounding pharmacy. Like the pharmacy is really specialized in develop some special formulation or compounding for like skin problem or things like that. So all this actually you need a very specialized research skill to look into the formulation part. So in that sense, actually in like, for example, community pharmacy nowadays, they actually also invest a lot into like special compound to sell it as a unique product in their pharmacies alone, so that they will attract more customer to their pharmacies, because the market is getting competitive. So that one will be another area to explore as well. So compounding part, we can actually have like pharmaceutical chemists or pharmacies to look into that particular area. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my students is currently a military pharmacist.
Oh.
So yes, so he joined the military as a military pharmacist, and it's a very honorable profession as a military pharmacist. And whenever I see his post on Facebook, all you see that it's a very honorable position to be as a military pharmacist, because people respect you so much, and you get that respect, and you also have that patriotic feeling of being a Malaysian military pharmacist. So that all comes along with that particular post of being as a military pharmacist, because you are serving the nation, alongside the armed forces. So in terms of any emergency, or you are there, and you are there as a military pharmacist. So it's a very honorable position, and it's a very dedicated position as well. Thanks.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we will not be able to, the time is probably up, it's 11:30 now. we are not able to cover all the questions, but we thank all your questions. We will actually answer you at the, separately on that. But at the same time, like you said, I want to thank all of you for attending today's question, and of course, for giving us so many different questions that we can at least share with you about pharmacy program and of course the career evolvement and pathways that's relating to pharmacy. So thank you very much for everyone for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.